Okay, everybody, thanks for coming. Today, Tabea is going to be talking about something really awesome. I'm really excited to hear about it. It's going to be basically how we can incorporate STEAM concepts into our music lessons. And that's something I've never really even tried to do, but it's a really cool concept, and I'm really excited about it. So, Tabea, go ahead and introduce yourself and what you'll be talking about today.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for being here and for using this sheet, this survey. We will have a look at it right now. First about me, there are just two interesting data about STEAM. I started in 2011, more or less. I learned about CLIL. If you know what that is, it's like content integrated language teaching or learning, which means that you teach not only a second language, you teach some topic like, let's say, vehicle mechanics, or how a water pump works, or how to play a piano together. Better said, you teach it in the foreign language in an adapted level. And when I started doing that, I liked it so much that I started mixing up different topics. And now in the COVID, I had the opportunity to learn about the European School Network. It's a European nonprofit organization. European because it's based in Europe and based on European education policies, but it's open to everybody. I say that because there are huge resources, a lot of tools everybody can use, and we have members from Australia or from Canada as well, for example. And they give free courses, among others, about STEAM. And this is when I learned not only from books, but a more concrete step-by-step approach, which is usually about concrete lesson plans. I think in the material I shared with you, you have one of these lesson plans. And we did real lesson plans and tested them with students. So let's go ahead. I will try to share my screen. Michelle, can you give me a permit to share the screen?
Yep, I just did. I probably missed you by about a second. Try it again.
Great. So the next big challenge to find the right screen. Yeah. Sound is not needed, but anyway. So what are you seeing? I do not see if I'm sharing my screen. Do you see my screen? Yes. Cool. Okay, this is your contribution. Thank you. As you can see, half of the people who participated in this survey, which were only 8, which is really not representative, but I think it's more or less the people who are here this Teach Meet, so that's cool. Half of you know a little bit about STEAM, or even a lot, and that is great because you can also help me further on in this lesson and give me some ideas. And what is probably most interesting is even some have worked with STEAM already. And what are the difficulties according to your opinion? So I will ask you right now, what is others? Because besides lack of knowledge, which I understand half of you haven't ever worked with STEAM, and this multidisciplinarity, what are others? What are other difficulties you have found with STEAM? Why did you not do it, or why did you not use it more often?
I never considered using it.
For some reason, or just
no,
because you find like this?
I know what it is, and I'm a former teacher in the schools, but I just never thought about using it in my lessons, piano lessons.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that a lot of parents that put their kids in private lessons are expecting, you know, an old-fashioned traditional lesson, and they aren't necessarily even going for it. So then why do all that extra work, you know? maybe that's part of it.
Cool. That's good. Good point. Why do all this extra work? If it's extra work, and why do it? Let's have a look at the slides. Well, I have to share them. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
First of all, these are the same questions, so we have already answered them. What is actually STEAM? The letters are saying it quite clearly, but actually I feel that is not really explaining what it is. It means that you use the elements of science or different subject matters, and you combine them like science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and all others. The best definition I found is that you use science and technology, which is interpreted through engineering, and all others based in mathematics. Why I think that is the best explanation, and I would like to hear from you if that is explaining to you what it actually means, is that science and technology are highly abstract and highly complex subject matters. You know, we already started perhaps 50 years ago with laboratory work and these kind of things, even workshops in some schools to bring that closer to kids. And engineering, I mean, you can understand this terminology in different ways, but the way it is understood in STEAM means that this is like the applied science. So technology and science from a theoretical side is applied in engineering, like doing something with this technology or with this science or both. And this is the practical interpretation, we could say. We design something, we make something, and all others is we connect it to our everyday life or to our aesthetic perception, to our own personal experiences, and it's based in math. Well, I think instead of explaining that, if anybody is against that, he would or she would have to say why. But if you do STEAM lessons, you will realize math is always the foundation of everything. You always need math. How does this feel for you? Is that explaining more or less what it could be?
Mhm.
I always thought the A was for arts.
This is often also explained like that. You can really find both in theories, but it means actually all other. But I have seen also that they use just arts. And I mean, it really doesn't matter, because what you usually do, I mean, you have really a huge catalog of subject matters from which you can choose. Even mathematics, you know, mathematics is one of the widest fields, and it's not really saying, I mean, that is more mathematics in the way of applied mathematics, not mathematics but also or logic, for example. So you take just one of each, and arts is part of humanities. So most people use arts, especially because if you are a primary teacher, and I think that is one of the big issues also for many piano teachers, is that you do not have such a broad education, especially not from the pedagogical side. You know what you know like everybody else, but you are an expert in teaching, let's say, a language, or you're an expert in teaching biology, but you're not an expert in art, in mathematics, and in engineering. It's very difficult to be good in everything or to know about everything. So very often we limit these topics to the most easy one, or to the one that is closest to the lesson plan or to the program, the national program we have at school. And arts is part of any national program. And usually music is not used because I think, at least in Europe, this is really like the step kit. It's something like, yeah, okay, if we have to do that, if we have some time left, we do also some music, and usually it's just theory about periods and some famous composers, and that's all, but very little about singing together, finding the beat, the rhythm, and these kind of things. So I think it's usually limited to drawing, which arts is much more. And yeah, but it's a good starting point. I think the best way is to start with what you best know, and art can be, I mean, can be a way to do that. Is that an answer for you, Cindy?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Cindy. Right? I cannot see you right now. Okay. I also use sometimes lesson plan and learning plan, and you read a learning scenario. You can read that all over in the literature about STEAM. That is an aesthetical aspect. It's really no difference. It's just like from a pedagogical background, people use more this word learning scenario because they want a more student-centered approach than this classical lesson plan. But it's actually the same. It's just a schedule, when to do what and which resources to use and what the goals are. So you have also seen that on the learning scenario I shared with you. Where to start? Now, from now on, I will not tell you what I was taught, because I was never really, I told you I learned a lot about STEAM, but I never got really a plan, like a 10-step plan, how to do that. And that was my purpose for you today, how to do that step by step, where to start. I think there are 5 points where you can start, which means you choose the one that suits you best. I would like to hear first, those who have already tested a STEAM lesson plan, where did you start? Do you remember that?
Who here has tested a STEAM plan?
Probably nobody?
I don't.
I tested one that wasn't, I didn't do a very good job. It was for making a MIDI keyboard. And yeah, it didn't go very well.
You were executing the plan, or you were designing it? I mean, you invented it, or you used one that somebody else had done?
I found a guy that likes to tinker and watched his video and wrote down like step by step how to make a MIDI keyboard, but I didn't have all the right supplies exactly the same. I was kind of makeshifting, and it was like it was a really a good learning experience, but it never got finished. I don't know why, but it didn't.
All right, so you had a technical problem, actually, not really a problem with STEAM. Yeah, but what was the reason to choose precisely this learning scenario, this lesson plan?
Because if I figured that kids can make MIDI keyboards, then they can get on Piano Marble. Like, honestly,
Cool.
It was direct.
Okay, so you wanted them to make the tool to use after in the classroom, we could say, like making, we know that from traditional classroom, making your own pencil case, for example, we did that
Right.
at least. Yeah, it's like the same approach. It's a great approach, actually. I mean, there might be technical issues, not only with MIDI pianos, even if you want to make a pencil case, it can be complicated, right? So
Right, yeah.
this is really something to consider. If you use something, and that is part of STEAM, you do something which you never have done or is not working for yourself, stay apart, don't do that. It will not work. Unless you say you don't know how to do that, and let's explore it. Sometimes kids are even better than you. I found that out. Yeah, sometimes I say, okay, we can try something, but I don't know if it works. And it worked because somebody in the classroom, I mean, somebody of the age of 12 knew more than me. So that happens, and it's cool.
Yeah,
but in general, cool. If you want to have success, and if you want to triumph with your parents and have little time, start with something you already know to do. We all know something to do, like cooking, or, well, not everybody knows cooking, but that could be something. Or you know to play a piece of music. That is also, that can be engineering, all right? We would come to that, because there is a lot of engineering in compositional technique and in musicality and so on, and you can use that. So the music performance can be part of art. It can also be part of the practical application of technology. Right. All right, start with what you already know. That is probably the easiest approach. Another approach you mentioned, that parents have already in their mindset this subject matter based education from the traditional classroom. Actually, STEAM is made for traditional classroom. All the courses I did was for teachers with very traditional classroom, with competences defined millimetrically for each activity they do. And that is actually where I got really engaged, because it combines this. In the past, we thought that is not a good approach because it's so strict and it's so standardized. And many of us in the educational field don't like that. The good thing of that is that all these standards are easily automized in an adaptive learning scenario, in the sense of Piano Marvel. So actually, Piano Marvel has a very strict lesson plan with very strict topics which have to be learned. I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but you go also step by step and gradually learn more. The only difference is that the time you spend on something and how to do that, this is open to the student. So it's student-based combined with a very traditional learning plan, actually. So this is not necessarily negative. This is actually the way I mostly do it, because at the end, students have not the time to spend in things beyond what they need to learn. They have so many things they have to learn. So think about that and try to find topics which your students need to know anyway. Like, how old are your students? Like 10, 12, something like that? Older?
Me?
Yeah, anybody.
All the way. Yeah, okay. I'm from like 5 to 18.
5 to 18. So you have really a huge field. And in your case, I think the best is to start with the primary school students, because these are topics which you probably control. If you are going to, I mean, you are a very clever woman and you probably know everything, but I know from my own experience, if you go to the college level, there might be already very complicated topics in mathematics, in science, which you do not remember from your own school time and you do never use in your daily life. So, but if you have to teach students how to sum up or do fractions and these kind of things, I mean, that is still easy for anybody of us. And you can start with these levels just to see the dynamics and how it works, and to see how parents react, because in that way you can say, okay, they had a piano lesson, but we did also some mathematical practice in arithmetic or something like that, which they are just now learning at their school. And you can actually ask your students, what do you need to know for the next month? What are the next exams about? Or what is your school book you're using in mathematics or in natural science? Are you aware of lesson plans from your country? I mean, most of you are from the US, and the US has a very open and detailed catalog, what you have to learn at which age and in which classroom and in which subject matter. Do you know that? I'm asking to anybody.
So I have a question for you. Yes, I think I kind of know that. So it looks like so far, I want to make sure I'm understanding. So you've kind of talked about the what and getting into the how, and I would also be interested in the why. You know, what led you into this, and why would you do STEAM, I guess?
I think that is also very connected to where you start. If you are starting with subject matters, the basic reason which you can sell to parents is you are not only saving time, because your kids can stay there 1 hour making math lessons in their workbook, or they can stay 1 hour with piano lessons, but they cannot do both usually. So if you combine it, they save time. The other aspect is, and there are a lot of studies about this, and if you want, I can search for them and send you some links, that if we combine subject matters, the learning impact is much higher. It is easier to understand a subject if you combine it with another one. What you feel in preparing the learning design, the lesson plan, makes it more complex and more complicated, is, at least in theory, if the scenario is well done, making it easier for the student to learn it. Do I explain that the right way? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it should actually not necessarily be more complicated? Yes, more complex. I mean, it's more complex because you combine more subject matters. And this is something I want to see now step by step how we can approach that, because it must not be that difficult, but it will always be complex. And it will be always difficult in the beginning for one reason. You are teaching perhaps 20, 30 years piano, and you have a whole bunch of material you're already using. You have done tons and tons of lesson plans. You can just repeat and adapt to the new students you have. Like, oh yeah, last year I had somebody, he had the same problem. I would test it out if that works for this kid. You don't have that for STEAM yet, just because it's new. And this is an issue. I think the best solution to that is there is a lot of free material out there. For example, if you do not know or do not want to spend time in collaborating with somebody from a different subject matter like physics or mathematics, you can find, like Karen Faye did, you can find already whole tutorials on how to do this or how to do that. But the problem is it must be at a level that you can understand that. And it's often not that you do not understand, let's say, how to make a MIDI piano keyboard, but because nobody has ever done it with you, it can really be a learning curve for yourself. And it
was mostly for me. Sorry.
Yeah, and it is very time consuming because there are so many aspects which are new. I say that from my own experience. There were simply things I gave up, okay? And this is a very good thing. I will repeat that probably every 10 minutes now. Whatever you do, keep track on that. Make some kind of list, what you did, because perhaps 1 year later, you can do it. You're learning too. And 1 year later, you might have even somebody who has already done it. And you can remember that and say, okay, hey, why don't do that now? And that way I learn it myself. So you should keep like a kind of library. I'm not sure if you're doing that for your piano lessons, but I'm sure Cindy is doing something because she has such an organized classroom. And I feel that you're having some system how to remember what you did with which student and how to do that. Is that right, Cindy?
Yes, I just have the traditional lesson plan book, and I just kind of keep loose notes. They're not, terribly organized, but just loose notes of who was there and what we did.
That is the right starting point, because you can use all these notes from the past, and when you have some time over, just look like, oh, what could I connect? And then you do the same for the STEAM lesson plans. You just add them to your book, or you make a second book and keep them. So it's really a learning curve, because we don't have the material, we don't have the experience. So anybody who is telling you it's easy is lying. That it's not easy because it's new, foremost, not because you cannot do it or it's difficult. I want to make that very clear. And it's not easy because it's more complex. Yes and no. I mean, it depends how you are teaching. If I see the classroom from Cindy's classroom, that is a complex classroom. You're doing a lot of activities, games, you have science. So there is a huge complexity in this. And STEAM must be not more complex. So if you are a teacher who is just like going through the piano marvel lessons, step by step, and looking, okay, that's good. Now musicality, okay, yeah. Well, this is the most easiest way. I know a lot of teachers are doing that in our public school. And for these teachers, it's a little bit like getting out of the box. We have this fashion here in Spain now that we use these books with gap in the text, and you just have to gap fill. That's how they teach at the moment, which is really interesting, because that's the last way we should do that. And that's what they are always preaching, but we do that. Why? It's easy to correct. It's easy to do. But we have piano marvel, we do not have these kind of problems. All the correction is done by the system. Everything we really need to teach is already automatized. So we are free to play around this. That's the idea. So subject matters are a good idea. If your students are having problem with some topic, start with that topic and combine it with piano marvel. you do not need to combine all the STEAM aspects. Start with one or two. That makes it also easier. Then one approach I discovered recently, I didn't find a lot of studies on this, just a few ones, and I found it really like 2 weeks ago, is that I start with an abstract concept. This is actually what we learned not to do. We learned to do something practical, like making a MIDI piano, right? And then from there to add all the theoretical part. I found that the more abstract a concept is, the easier it is to connect a lot of different things to it, like symmetry. Do we have symmetry in music?
Absolutely. I forget you can't see us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can only, you have to
Yeah.
answer.
We're all nodding
Exactly.
here.
You have symmetry in music. Do you have symmetry in nature?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you have symmetry in mathematics, in geometry, you have symmetry in programming. So that's it. So recently I found out that vectors are really cool to combine.
Yes.
It really doesn't matter. Anything you take, the more abstract it is, forms are really good, like circles, triangles, and you start combining them. How I do that? I love mind maps. You can do that by hand, like you put the concept in the center and start thinking what connects to it. And you can get a whole, a whole lesson plan. That's a new way I'm doing it. And I will still have to test if that is a really good way to do it. Okay, so, but I wanted to share that with you.
So
Another
Tabea,
way, yes?
sorry, when you gave you talked to us previously about doing drumming with piano marble.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that was a STEAM lesson because you
Yeah,
integrated,
I would say so. Yeah.
Cultural, you integrated, kind of life lessons, you integrated different things. And because I'm like, okay, how do I apply this in piano? Because some of the examples are kind of homeschool based, but if you're doing piano, it connects them to other parts of their life, right? Am I understanding that correctly? So
Absolutely.
that their experience is not just piano, it allows them to reach into other parts of their life and connect them into what they're learning in piano. But I don't know if I'm understanding. I'm just putting it out to you. Is that correct?
Actually the main reason why we should do STEAM, because it makes learning meaningful. And it makes piano learning meaningful. It's not just because your parents want that. It's because that is part of your life. I mean, I'm an extremist in this point because I believe that music is the first thing of all. This is based on a philosophy of Al-Farabi, but I believe that it's even above mathematics. You might heard about the spheres of the universe, like the sound of the universe. But everything is resonance, everything is sound. So in this way, you should not take me too serious. I'm like almost religious on that. But STEAM makes a learning more meaningful because it connects. And one of the elements is what, for example, Karen Fay introduced, to do something that is useful in your everyday life. This is really also part of it, to see I'm not only learning, I'm doing something I can use, and it's really useful for my everyday life. This is what John Dewey means when he says learning is life. It's not for life. We do not, I'm sure everybody has heard that when you were a kid. You're learning for yourself, not for me as a teacher. Or you're learning for life, for the future. No, you're not learning for the future. You should be learning right now because you have a problem. That is another approach. This was actually introduced by the free school in Spain in the Franco era, which never prospered, as you can imagine. But Montessori school is based on this theory, for example. And there is also the school in the cloud. I do not remember this is an Indian man who invented that. And this idea is you start with a big question. It's like kids have questions. It must not be like a very philosophical question, but just like, why is the moon sometimes this way and why sometimes this way curved? And why is it sometimes full? This kind of question a primary school student might ask us. And to answer such questions can be a starting point. Learner-based approach goes combined with that, but big questions, usually you advance them, like you think what they could ask. And learner-based is you ask your students directly, what do you need? Or what do you like? I do that with Minecraft. I know they like Minecraft. So I'm taking Minecraft lessons, actually, actively. So I go into a room and learn to kill zombies. This is my little son who is teaching me that, just to understand what he likes about it and what is the difficulty about it. What skills does he need to know to do that better? And to improve his skills, he needs certain things. And this is very easy because if anybody is playing video games, you will find out very soon they need programming. I mean, they find that out. And so you have them already on the right side. These are very easy students. And music players, music performers are the same. If you have music, the step to programming is very easy, because starting with music score, which is not really programming yet, but you can do a lot of that in music score, you're going already in this tech part. So to combine music with technology is very easy. Have I shared with you this learning scenario about, it is called the Revolutionaries Time Machine? It was one of the links. If not, I will send you that after this session. We did that in one of these courses, and this was a group work. And there we had a subject matter approach because we were 3 teachers. I wanted to do something with music. One guy was a programming and math teacher, and one girl, she was in history and language teaching. And she also had a desire. She said she wanted a storytelling based learning scenario. So we had like a catalog of desires and combined that. And this was the result of that. There I have to say also, usually if you are in a group together working, you have this approach that some are giving input and one might be the one who is connecting things. That is not necessarily so, but it's often quicker. We had really little time. We had 1 week to do that. So this was the way we did that. And I was in 2 teams. One I did, and the other team, they did it. And I just added some input. So it is sometimes not really balanced. If you want it more balanced, you need more time to do that, obviously, but it will also be better, I think. So in this learning scenario, what we did is we had the French Revolution. So what has the French Revolution to do with music? Some idea, anybody? We think always about battle and Napoleon, these kind of things, right? I cannot see you.
Tabea.
All right.
We're all thinking, we're all trying to answer the question, but
okay, that's cool. Okay, then think aloud. If you do not connect it to music, to what do you connect it? Let's start like this. Have you heard about the French Revolution?
I was like, give us a tiny history lesson here on the French Revolution, because it may come back to us.
It was obviously not meaningful for your life, Kami.
I'm so sorry. I don't have a good memory, so.
No, why don't you have a good memory? Because it was not meaningful. It was not emotionally engaging, and it was not meaningful. This is the reason why we should do meaningful lessons.
Sure, yeah.
I just remember there are a lot of jokes in our family about if someone's being bossy, which terrible leader they're being like. Those are the ones that I can remember because they're hilarious. But
It's a very cool starting point as well, because you can use that. This is like the cultural aspect, right? if you have a lot of jokes, probably other families in your area have the similar jokes. Is that possible? Or is that only your family?
You're on mute, Karen Faye.
I just have like a little unicorn here. She was going to just say hello and then she was gonna lay back down, I think. Is that like, let's have a wave and we can get going. Oh, look, they're all waving at you. Aw, did you wave back? Okay. All right. Question was, oh,
The jokes.
Yes, there's jokes. They're not and not in the way where they're like no racism, but just like, if I'm deciding to get rid of all of the grapes, someone will be bound to mention, like it's a grape genocide, or like it's we bring in like strange historical into the groceries. I don't know why. Like it's our family's weird sense of humor, but I think it exists outside of our family,
Yeah, but that could be a good starting point. And then you can use something like tension, for example, which is something that exists in music. It's not that directly connected, but I mean, it's connected in the sense that for some reason you have this image in your mind when you think about the French Revolution. And that way you can apply the same, it's like a feeling. You really do not know more, apparently. So, but you have this emotion, this feeling, this image, and you can translate that to music, for example. What we did is much more straightforward and simple, and it is in Piano Marvel. There is a absolute beginner song called France, which is actually a simple version of the Marseillaise. Have you heard about the Marseillaise? This is the French national anthem. And it is actually copied. That is one of the best propaganda pieces I have ever heard. I really don't like the song, but I like the achievement. Because it's like 10 other countries are still using the same melody for their national anthem too. So there is something in that sound that moves people in a direction. And that was our starting point. What makes people move in a direction? And well, from there, we did a huge exploration phase. And in exploration phases, I started always, that has nothing to do with STEAM, that has to do with being a woman. I started asking myself, who was a scientist by this time in France and was a woman? This is like this kind of question, where is the unicorn? And there is always a unicorn. That is the surprising thing. And I don't want to get her name wrong. You can read it in the learning scenario, but I found this woman. She was actually the first one who was explaining resonance in a mathematical way. She didn't get it fully, but she achieved really a huge step in mathematics for the first time after like 200 or even more years. And nobody knows her. That was really amazing. So I included that. And what we did is we worked on mathematical series. We applied them in a very simple app. And that is the important point, bring that to something simple, where you can just change a few numbers and make an automatic sound, a music. So you can program actually a tune. And the kids had to compete tuning some music that was motivating people to do something. Of course, we didn't want to go to war. What we took as the trigger was, how can you motivate people for climate change? Because this is like, what is politically correct right now? And we said, okay, do a sound that motivates people for climate change. And I mean, we didn't need really a propagandistic sound, but the idea was to connect psychoacoustics with this number series and with music, with real songs. And we had this Piano Marvel France. There is also a Marseillaise version in Piano Marvel, and I was looking for some different versions of the Marseillaise just to compare also, and where the song comes from and so on. And we already had the whole STEAM because we had physics, we had mathematics, we had history, and we had music. So That was
So-
one example.
So
Yes.
So Tabea, can I jump in? I was thinking, so if you have your music and you have all these different components that are related to the music. So you have the history of the piece, the history of the composer, the history of the era or the area and what was going on when that piece of music was created. You have the math that's going on in the music. You have the you also have music that was done for a specific purpose, like you were talking, say the French Revolution, or you were talking about the anthem, that the music has a very specific purpose, whether it be for a ceremony or, you know, to acknowledge some kind of special occasion or event. And so would STEAM be taking those elements of music, trying to help them come alive for the student so they understand it's not just notes and rhythms, that these things have power, they play out in communities, they play out in cultures, they play out in countries, and they impact how people come together or against one another and why. Is that kind of one conceptualization of how to take STEAM and apply it in the teaching music setting? I know it's probably a simplified version compared to what you're saying, but I'm trying to wrap my mind around it.
That's exactly what we actually did. It's not simplified. Okay. That's actually what we did. And what we connected is that you can calculate that. That is also interesting, that you have a mathematics of emotions, because this was about intervals, if I remember. I do not remember it fully. I'm sorry, but because we did a lot of similar things afterwards. But this is about intervals, and that there are intervals which create tension, and there are intervals which release attention. So to play with that and with the combination of that, you had actually a calculated way of emotions in through music, and you can control those emotions mathematically through music, which we know from Mozart. He was very mathematical in his compositions, for example. I mean, in the sense he was aware of what he was doing more than other composers who just applied them. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. I would like to do something together with you, because actually I'm just going here into details, but I went already through all that. So you have all these different fields, what you mentioned right now. And these are just some ideas where we could start as piano players, what we are using. I mean, that is a very, very reduced list of topics. This is much, much huger, but just to give you some ideas. Who would like to do something? I mean, like for these 8-year students of Cindy, for example, what are you usually playing in your classroom, and what are they learning in the school, for example?
What do you mean playing in the classroom?
I can't hear you.
I'm not muted. Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you.
Oh, we can hear her, Cindy. Can anybody else hear Cindy? Yeah, got a yes from Karen Faye.
Yeah.
Can you hear me today?
I will stop sharing. Let me see.
When you say, what am I playing?
Now it's good.
Now it's good. When you say, what am I playing? Do you mean game-wise? Because I use a lot of games.
Exactly. That's a good starting point.
So then you're doing kinesthetic stuff, and you're using different learning styles so that it catches everybody, and it makes it fun. It's not always just auditory all the time, right? So I'm very aware how to do that kind of thing, but as far as integrating another subject matter, that would be new territory, I think.
For example, if you have a game, what type of games do you use? Can you give us some examples?
Okay, yesterday we did a Scrabble-like game. Michelle, this was later in the day, but so I have cards that have, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you can use this game to practice intervals. So with the very small children, the beginners, we just do seconds, right? So they're putting, I start the Scrabble-like situation on the floor, and then they get a card, and can they put that C, it's going to be next to a B or a D, right? And then they can't mix the colors, and I mean, they can't have the same color. So it creates a Scrabble thing, and it works for any interval. So yesterday we were doing thirds with some girls that had been a little bit older. And it was very hard for them at first, but I gave them the visual of the keys and I labeled all the keys so that it took, because one of the little girls was new enough that she didn't know all of her keys yet. And so then they had to mathematically figure out, okay, 1, 2, 3 forward, 1, 2, 3 backward. And then they could figure out what they could place where. So there was a lot of math involved there, but there was a lot of thinking. There was a lot of doing with their hands.
You're coming and going, sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't know why that is.
It's not happening for me, so I don't know who it's happening for. If it's just
I don't hear anybody right now. Oh yeah, comes and goes.
So in that particular game, you know, you are using math, you are using the visual, you're having to kind of strategize and think, where can that card go? Plus the rules, you can't have 2 cards the same color together and you can't put a foursome together. So I was very pleased that this new little girl who just doesn't even know F and G, or, you know, in the right hand or left hand either, but she was able to figure out what the process was. And she was helping the other girl at times. Oh, you could put it here, you know, and they were helping each other and light bulbs were going off. And so that was good. So that now when she's doing the piece that she was working on before we did the game, she was missing the thirds. She was playing seconds. And I said, you see what's happening here? There's a third, right? So we kind of made that real by playing this game. But that's maybe as close as I can get to what you're talking about here, but I'm not bringing it in.
The only thing that in theory is missing to call it STEAM is physics and technology. And let me think about that. I would try to find some links and send it to you, but throughout this week, okay? I can make some kind of list of that. Because physics, first of all, is not that easy at this low level, because well, it is, but we usually think about something different when we think about physics. It's just like colors are physics. Different temperatures are physics. Even different positions in a room are part of physics. You could start with something like that to integrate that, which is really, if I understand the game fully, that could be done. Just one of these, not all of these. It's just giving ideas, not thinking about physics in a very abstract sense, but in a sense, actually primary school and preschool students are learning about it, which is still very, very simple and basic. And that is possible to do. The other thing, the technology thing, is actually easier in the sense there is a lot from Google and other free resources where you just can push some buttons. And for example, listen to different thirds and compare them or something like that, which I will look for, and then you can use that. This is already using technology. I mean, at the level of 5 or 6 years, you do not need to program a whole thing or to do something complicated. It's just to open an app and to use it and to connect it to music and see. I mean, even using Piano Marvel is always using technology, actually. So
I guess I was going to say, I guess I could, you know, when you had that other page up where it was talking about sound waves and that kind of thing, we could have explored what a third sounds like up and what a third sounds like going down, so that they're hearing that, and that also becomes part of the learning. So that would have been an angle I could have added.
This is very cool. You have your STEAM lesson.
I'm doing it.
Yes, really. I hope the others also see that it must not be that complicated. It's just
I never had physics in school, so that's kind of a big learning curve for me.
Yeah, for everybody of us, because those who had usually forgotten about it. Or like my oldest son, like I asked him about something about graph plotting, because the other son of mine is learning that right now, and I asked him, how did they teach that to you? And he said, well, they taught it the last week of the course, and they taught us that it will not be in the exam. So yeah, that I think that is really the key, what Kami already discovered. It's about making learning meaningful. And if you do not find physics or do not find the math in your lesson, just leave it out and do what you find. But combine things in a way that makes it meaningful. And you will discover the more you add from the other topics, the more fun it will be. Yes. This is not school. You can't just speak.
I know, but I know I'm really bad for interrupting too. So one thing that I found, I don't know if it's transferable, but I did one where we made a guitar stand and a cello stand. And of course, the guitar, they had to measure the depth of the guitar and see how far away it would be from the wall. And they could see that, like, you know, where it was going to go, it had to be parallel, so we could use parallel. We had to have the opening for the neck measured properly, and we found the pincher. Like, there's a lot. And then for the bass, we had a piece of foam, and we had to cut the foam to fit the guitar, and then we had to make the cello move way out and still and make longer foam. So it was just like measuring, but it was also, I mean, physics, we needed to have a much bigger hanger for the cello and things like that. And we also had to have something for the
what did you do in physics, and what was the age of kids?
10 and 12.
All right, yeah.
10 and 12. So it wasn't really like the physics, like you said, it was difficult to apply, but the principles that you needed a larger, more sturdy.
You actually can introduce harmonic series and overtone. I mean, they will not calculate that. That will be probably too difficult. But to get the idea what it is. Yeah, to get the idea what it is. Because then when a very boring teacher is teaching them that topic, it will be interesting because they remember, oh, we did that in the classroom with current Faye. I know what it is. And then the mathematics becomes interesting because they get control over something they have heard before and they have used before, but without control. So the physics is giving them control.
The piano is the best for teaching with physics anyhow, because of, you know, you get the velocity of your attack, and then you open up the front and you can see this mechanically engineered brilliance and all the different materials interacting, and you can hear the Harmonic Series, you know, lift up the pedal and just let it, and like I make that somewhat magical by, I don't know, lying, saying it's magical, but it's not a lie. It sounds magical to me. There is harmonics, and they like, the magical sound is the harmonics, and then, you know, it leads into more when they're ready for it. But yeah.
Well, and that
sorry, went on a tangent.
No, that was great. The tool that Cindy, you were talking about was Music Mind Games, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
What is the name of this tool?
It's Music Mind Games, and I use a lot of her stuff.
Cool. I will look through that because I can see how to connect that to Steam.
Yeah, it's actually really awesome. She has a lot of and her stuff is so there's so many relationships between they make all the connections between all the relationships, how everything relates, and it's very mathematical, but in a way that children get and understand and can do. It's very fun for them.
Yeah,
so cool.
She does incorporate a lot of math under the radar, but it's there.
You never have to worry about the math because thinking is math. You know, because
math, it's there. And
it's always there. You cannot avoid it, actually. So that part is easy. We have the art part because we are doing music. That is easy too. As Karen Faye said, it's always about physics. There, the difficulty is to find the simplicity for the level of your students.
Yeah, okay, I second that. That's where
that is sometimes because we are adults and we think too far. That is my problem, at least, always. I think, oh yeah, harmonic series, yeah, but what does it mean for a 5-year-old? You know, that is the difficult step actually to
or
think.
even for somebody who's not familiar with music, you know, to
Yeah.
introduce a concept like that. It reminds me of, oh, is anybody going to know this? What's it called? Is it called the Fibonacci? Where there's a pattern in like how a leaf's veins, I'm not going to get this right, but essentially it's all throughout nature, but it's also,
Yeah,
I believe it's also in music. But it's just
I'm
interesting
working
to
right
see.
now. I'm working right now on combining it with chemistry because I found it's like less intuitive. It's more difficult to connect it in STEAM lessons. And I'm working now on a series of learning scenarios to do that because it's possible, but sometimes you just have to take it the time to say, I want that. And then there is Google, you know, like the I want that and Google together, you find everything. Really, you have to have the faith that I was looking for music impact on sugar molecules. I was Googling that and I found that. I'm working right now on that.
That is really...
It was just, I wanted something with sugar because we want to make a party for kids. So sugar is always a good starting point. Like in Cindy's classroom, the sweets. And I thought, okay, sugar molecules, how do they interact with music and sound?
Well, and it's
and there's always
like...
a weird scientist out there who did a study on that.
Well, sugar molecules make sound because the kids squeal when they get there.
You see, you have the next learning scenario. Yeah, you're so cool.
But I was going to say, it's really fascinating, like the storytelling element that sometimes we incorporate in our teaching and sometimes we don't, but everybody can really dig into a story and it makes it relatable. And so I think, like, for example, even if you're sharing a research study, like I was fascinated with a research study that showed how plants react to music, exposure to music. You wouldn't think there was a reaction, but the science shows there's a reaction. So
Yeah.
for me as a child, that was fascinating. And it, you know, it triggered something in me. And so you never know what's going to be interesting to a child or an adult, any learner, anybody who's learning, that if it's not brought in, they may not make that connection that, wow, you know,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Or it may be too much in this, the Revolutionaries time machine. We actually wanted this storytelling element, and I did a huge effort on storytelling. And the kids were like, can we just switch that?
Oh.
They were so much interested in understanding how things work, and they were absolutely not really interested in getting through the whole history. So yeah, sometimes that can be also difficult. As you say, you never know what triggers them. And
Right.
I think it's also good to leave them some freedom and just to pick what they need. When they need something, they will look for it. I think that is the most challenging in any lesson, but especially also in STEAM. If you add an element, it should be somehow necessary to solve the problem. If it's not necessary, it's very possible that they switch it. I mean, it may be that they just like it. Like some people always like painting, but if you do not connect this painting to a music piece or to a physical theory, well, those who don't like painting will just not do it. Unless you force them to do that, but that's not always the easy thing.
Yeah, I know that Ann Hansen, she was kind of working in like looking at my program a little bit, and she was like, you know, let's add some music history to the program. And I have primarily adults, and I thought, oh great, yeah, let's do that. They loved it because the history adds richness to the piece they're learning. Like they were just like, oh my goodness, he was deaf. Oh my goodness, he lost his sight. You know, like
that is not the same like storytelling, right?
I think
History is not storytelling.
Well, whatever
you can combine
wherever
that.
you put it. It definitely seemed to enrich their experience. I don't know what you would call it, but incorporating it made it come alive for them. Like for me, the math of music is fascinating. I love the math of music. And also this history and this background of music. And there's just so many elements that we kind of could ignore as teachers and just teach this is what you do. you know, and not make all these other connections. But for the student, at least for my students, when we brought in that music history element, it made it come more alive for them. It made it more of an enriching experience for them.
What's the difference between?
For this example from the music from the revolutionaries, we also used history, and that part they liked very much. With history, I mean what you just listed, like facts, like people who lived in that time, things that were developed in that time. This is something that people always like. They were 14 and they also liked it. But the storytelling is more like really telling a story. And what we did is like we told the story of 4 young students who are in France and discover all that things and like looking through their eyes. And they like thought, okay, we do not need that. We make our own story up, you know.
Or kind of like Anne Q. Oh, it looks like, oh, she had to leave early. That's right. She has, Cindy as well, has students compose music based on a story they create. Like that.
Yeah, that was what they had to do. Yeah, composing is always very good in the practical part if you do not want to make a MIDI piano.
So some of this is a little beyond my level, I'll tell you. So Karen Faye takes this to a level that I have never approached before, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, but not a good idea. It's not a good idea.
Composing is a practical part, how you can apply engineering, because it's a lot about engineering actually. And we all know to compose, perhaps not at the same level, but it doesn't matter, just to show elements and techniques. That is already good for a STEAM lesson. I would like to hear about Evelyn. Oh, sorry. Where is my arm? I would like to hear from those who haven't spoken, if that was helpful for them, if they consider perhaps to integrate one element, or if not, why? Evelyn, for example, how do you feel about all that?
Well, it's all helpful to integrate these ideas in our lessons. And I think for most of us, we find the place that we focus and emphasize. And so it becomes, to be terribly inclusive, lets us not be focused in those things that we feel are important to bring through. I get very focused on harmony and theory and making sure that students understand that background. So I see all of the asset to all of these ideas. It's just that it's hard to go running off in another direction, and then you're not within the focus that you're productive with.
But you're working with Piano Marvel as well, right?
Oh yes, I've been working with Piano Marvel since it started.
Would that be helpful to have like learning scenarios based on the Piano Marvel method and to integrate a few things?
Absolutely.
Just so you know, you've all of a sudden started echoing. Oh, me
Yeah,
too.
yeah, you sound like you know, a muse just bellowing out over the canyon there.
All
So
of our
is that-
audio has just wigged out all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's better.
Okay?
So
Oh,
strange.
I don't know what happened, but every single person had a different audio issue, and I got
Yeah,
kicked
it's
out
so
of that.
spooky today.
You're right. Sorry for interrupting. Bring it back to where it was. I just noticed the audio was being weird.
Yeah, are there still some questions? Or Cheryl, how do you think or feel about STEAM? I think she has no video today.
Cheryl, where are you?
So with Evelyn, you were saying she uses Piano Marvel, so that brings in some of the STEAM components. Is that because the audio was happening right when you were answering that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the question was more because I'm planning to make some ready-made learning scenarios for Piano Marvel based on STEAM. So not every teacher has these abilities or the time to do that. So you just could download it and apply it. And yeah, that was my question, if that would be helpful or not.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think
yes.
that would be helpful to any teacher, like not having to create the wheel every time there's something new.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, we would all have to be so productive.
Well, and
All of us independently, it would be so useless.
it's
Let's
really,
just share.
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm so excited. I have to say, I'm going to have Evelyn come and share with our studio. I'm so excited for her to share. And she has all this background in history and understanding of theory and harmony that I have not gone into that much depth with it. I have not done, but you have all this interest in STEAM and how to incorporate it. So we really would benefit from this sharing type of, I mean, that's the exciting component for me, because I hear this, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I am working on this one thing, you know, and I'm like, how am I going to incorporate this? But if there's somebody kind of doing some of the work for me, or most of the work for me, and letting me implement it, I'm like, okay. And then I get to see the benefits of it, but somebody else has done the work to say, this is how.
Yeah,
you
I was
can
thinking a lot
incorporate
about
it.
you when I prepared this presentation, because actually you have such a structured course already done,
Yes.
which is a huge work as well, and very
Yes.
based on Piano Marvel.
Mhm.
It's just a little step to integrate STEAM in there. It's much
Well,
less than it seems.
Only a little step if you're involved.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
You know.
the point. But that is
Yeah.
exactly the point. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think we have Cheryl now. If you had.
Do you want me to offer something?
I wanted to know if this became a little bit clearer for you today, what STEAM means and where you could start, or if you could integrate something, or is it more like, okay, I'm with a big interrogation sign and I would just leave it behind?
Oh, I'm just thinking of so many things that I've done in the past that connect with what you've been talking about. I have a PowerPoint presentation on Pythagoras, who is the mathematician who organized the circle of fifths that we use.
I didn't know he did that.
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
know that.
And I can send you the link to that, and it's on my website, normanmusicstudio.com, but I could send you the link. I could send it to
Michelle, and she
Michelle?
can share it with us.
yes, I can send it to you. It's so, as you've been saying, music is math. And we got it from Pythagoras, who lived in Greece. His father was a captain of ships, and Pythagoras went around to all the countries in the Mediterranean and learned the music, art, literature, mathematics. And he put together all of this mathematics into our music that we use. And this just shows how mathematical it is. So if you want me to share it, I can send it to Michelle and she can email it out to you.
That'd be very
Great.
interesting.
That's amazing.
Thank
you, Cheryl. You see, you're already doing STEAM.
Well,
I used to be on the board of directors of the National Music Teachers Association, and I've shared this, in probably about 6 or 7 states. Long ago, though. This was 2014 that I ended that part of my career. But everybody could connect and see how mathematical music is. So I will send the link to Michelle after this, and then you can see some connections with everything that you've talked about, really. Because Pythagoras wanted everything connected, just like you're talking about. He wanted everything mathematical. He wanted everything musical, artistic, scientific. He was a scientist mainly, but then he connected it with everything else around us.
in ancient times, like in Babylonia or in Alexandria, or also in Old Greek, Greece, this was the usual way of learning and teaching.
Yes.
They were not teachers in math. They were just scientists. And it was not until the 19th century when we became like polymath, like somebody who knows a lot of, but nothing really well, like a bad word. But actually, that was the way of teaching in the past. So, yeah.
Well, and I can't remember who told me this. I have a feeling it was you, Tabea. Many of the biggest scientists out there were musicians.
Yes.
They played an instrument, you know, like
Yeah.
Einstein played the violin. I don't know all the scientists and what they did, but many of them were musicians. There is some connection between science and music, that, you know, and sometimes they could only pursue one after a while because it just took all their time, but a lot of them were very much so. And a lot of musicians are scientists, which like they have a degree in science-based things. And it's just interesting fact. But you probably told me that, right? Is that where I got that from?
Can I make one other comment?
Please.
A number of the universities here in Utah have found that those students who have a degree in piano performance do better as medical doctors and medical people than any others. Does that give you a
Interesting?
Yeah, there's a lot of
Under
scientific
pressure.
study on that. We could make a kind of shared list, like the one you do on the favorite pieces, and look for articles who give proof to that, because that is something we know for a long time, not only mathematics, but that learning to play music, and especially the piano, but also other music instruments, is having an impact on our minds that also makes us more able for other scientific fields. So we should do some kind of research on that.
Isn't it true that music is the only thing that fires all parts of the brain?
Yes.
Yes.
And it keeps us from Alzheimer's.
Wow, I better start playing a little more then.
I know.
Also,
Right.
oh, never mind.
I relate to that a little too much.
I started playing the piano more.
Right. I was going to say, so everyone knows, Tabea, there's a link to her PowerPoint and some additional information in the email that Michelle sent out about this class. And as I was going through it, it's an excellent resource and has a lot more information than even you spoke about during this meeting today. So
there's a lot you can click on, and it opens, and there are some already made learning plans you can use, like a kind of guideline. So yeah,
I could tell you put tons of preparation into this, and I mean, kind of knew that would happen because that's how you roll, and it's really great and wonderful. So I want to make sure everybody knows those resources are there, because you really put together some nice resources.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have anything else, Cheryl? Because I feel like I cut you off at one point.
Well, I'll send you my website link and then this PowerPoint on Harmony.
Are you able to add it to the chat?
What?
Or she
Are
can
you able
send it
to
to
put it in
Michelle.
chat?
That's easier to save, because I'm not even
Okay.
on my computer. I will not get it.
Yeah. Okay.
I wondered if Cheryl would feel like presenting it even in one Teach Meet, if that would be fine for Michelle and the Piano Moral organization. That could be really cool, and we could think about it, how she uses it with Piano Moral.
Would you be interested in that, Cheryl?
If is that Michelle talking?
Sorry, Cheryl. I wanted to say. Oh, it's Tabea talking.
Let's see.
Okay. I'm going to have somebody teach me how to share my screen because of the PowerPoint. If I can have a grandson come over and
we can do that even easier. You can send it to Kami or to Michelle, and she can present the screen, and you tell her just go on, to the next slide or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Michelle? Is Michelle here?
having
My-
Yeah,
technical
I'm here.
problems.
I just got back in. I'm having so it keeps kicking me out.
Yeah.
But I'm here right now.
Does Michelle want me to present this on a Tuesday session?
I think so. I got cut out of the meeting like we were talking about it was. So I heard it's something about like a PowerPoint on station, but that's all I heard.
Yes, the PowerPoint on Pythagoras and the creating our circle of fifths mathematically and so forth. If you want me to do that on this in this Tuesday group, I'd be glad to.
We lost Michelle, but I will have her be in contact with you. Oh, she's back. She put her Wi-Fi is really.
Sorry, I got cut out
hit and
again, but I
miss.
think I heard. Oh, yeah, my internet keeps kicking me out. I think I heard most everything though, and I do think that would be an awesome topic, and we'd love to have you present on that. So I'll look at the schedule and see when we have. I think later in July would be a good time, like about a month from now, maybe 3 weeks from now. But I'll email you with like the times we have available and see when would be best for you.
And I'll email you the link, Michelle.
Okay.
You can look at it and see.
Yeah.
But I presented this in, as I said before, in about 7 states when I was on the National Board of the Music Teachers Association.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm sure it would be great. Yeah, I'd like to take a look at it, but I'm sure we would love to have you present that.
It really fits in with what Tabea's been telling us today.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So we'll just talk by email and get all that figured out.
Okay.
And
Sorry, I haven't been very present for this meeting. I keep getting kicked out like every 5 minutes, so it's been interesting.
you can
I
tell.
would want to say maybe a bad word if I were you. I can say it for you in private after. Okay.
Okay.
help
You know what's
you
really
get that.
really funny is I can't like I just don't I say funny like
Oh, sugar.
insert words, like really
Oh.
ridiculous ones. Those are the words that come out, like shucks and stuff like that. So it's me. Yeah.
Well,
It makes
Oh,
me feel better for you.
thanks.
I was going to say thank you
It's
to
been really,
Tabea.
really nice.
I'm sorry.
This
Sorry?
has been this has been really thoughtful. Makes my wheels turn. So thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you so
I
much,
also
Tabea.
I just found out that you are all experts already.
Ah,
I mean, not me.
You know, I go in cycles. I'll use something with my students, and then with these classes, it'll bring to memory, oh, I've got that material. I need to start using that again, and then use something else again. Do you know what I'm saying? I get into habits of with my teaching, and I need to get back into adding some of these things that I have done in the past. Thank you.
mhm.
All right. Well, does anybody have any other questions for Tabea before we let everyone head off into their Tuesday?
No more questions, but it's good to see your faces.
Good to see everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks again, Tabea.
Yeah.
Or Tuesday, sorry.
See you
Bye.
soon. Yes.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.